Hello and welcome to AIL TV. As usual, we are stretching the time. It is 6:20 or 6:25 thereabout. You see, we need to make sure that everything is working okay. Right. No more talking. Here on AIL TV every Thursdays, it is all about security, global terrorism, and many things just concerning security. But as you know, last week we were talking about Mali and probably the fiasco, the ongoing fiasco that is going on, Mali politically, and there was a coup and stuff like that. But also tonight, I'm sure David Otto from CISO will also add on another country to discuss. So, without wasting much of your time, I'm going to hand you over to David Otto from CISO. Stepped in, stepped out. David, you are on.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Otieno. Thank you for hosting this program, for your usual commitment. The more powerful thanks goes to Africans in London Television for giving us this platform. Again, as we've always said, this is a security update for Africa. We do these programs every Thursday of the week, and we continuously appreciate the audience that we have, and we really thank a lot of the people that are sending us questions for us to put to as a specialist guest that we have on this studio. We really want to thank you and hope that you enjoy this session. Last week, again, as Mr. Joseph said, we discussed the situation in Mali. For those of you who don't know, Mali is a country that is situated in the west, of Africa, but also geographically, Mali is around the center of Africa as well. So you can look at it either way. It shares its borders with Burkina Faso, Niger Republic, the region known as the Liptako-Goma region. It also shares a border with Niger Republic. Of course, Niger Republic then shares a border with Chad. And then with Nigeria, of course, you've got Sudan as well. So the entire region is well connected, and that is why some of the language issues, the core issues are very, very similar. So last week we talked about the coup d'etat, or so-called coup d'etat, the military junta, known as the community or the National Community for the Salvation of the People of Mali, abbreviated as CNSP. I said they didn't carry out a coup. What they principally said was that they took the president. They gave him an opportunity to leave power. So they're not describing it as a coup. But that's up to the judgment of the CNSP. A lot of people believe that this is a coup d'état. So we will discuss this with our experts that we have today and see where they. What they think about the CNSP saying that they didn't organize a coup, that it was simply a transfer of power from the president to, of course, the military. That's the one which, of course, we have to make that judgment. You have to make that judgment, and then again we would move from there and talk about Ivory Coast. Or, I was speaking to one of the experts on this platform today, and he said to me, "Oh, David, don't call it Ivory Coast, because." You're translating the country's name, so you stick to Côte d'Ivoire. So I said, okay, so from now on we would use the word Côte d'Ivoire. Of course, it's a French, one of the French colonies, but again situated at the west and center of Africa, geographically at the center, but politically at the west. The situation with Côte d'Ivoire is a lot more political. The current president, Alassane Ouattara. Some analysts have described, the fact that he wants to run for the third term, contrary to the constitution, as a coup. I listened to one of the ECOWAS presidents, and I'm not going to name him, but I'm sure that my experts will do. And he simply said, there is no difference between what the military junta, the one that the CNSP has done, and with what the Ivorian president or Cote d'Ivoire president, to call it that way, by the correction of my colleague. That there is no difference between that and the coup that has been carried out. So you've got one political coup, or what is being referred to as one constitutional coup, and on the other hand, one military coup. So I'll talk to my guest about this and see what they think. Now, there is another development which my guests are going to dig into, which is the very news that we've got just before we began this program today, that the CNSP, after having a meeting with ECOWAS, ECOWAS was represented by the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Ebere Jonathan. They went to Mali to visit the junta president, and they had some discussions. They were allowed to see the ousted president Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, and from that conversation, the president has been released today, and he's gone back home. And my guest, will also dive into what has happened from there, because there's more things to discuss about that as well. So you listen very carefully to them, and you can get all the details of that. But interestingly, what I think I want the audience to think about is how glorious this so-called coup d'etat has been. Again, I emphasize that the official committee for the National Committee for the Salvation of the People of Mali, the CNSP junta, they've made it very clear that this is not a coup. But the good thing is nobody was killed. There were no gunshots. But that is where I think I want my guests to critically think about this. Presidents in Africa rely a lot on the military. The Malian military are very close to the president before now. And there is a coup, and no gunshots. Nobody tries to defend the coup. So I want you to think about the lines of, whether this is something which, was well arranged from the inside. Because what you realize is that the president was being asked to resign. Did he choose resignation as the bad option, and then said, let me not go for resignation. Let me, see what I can do with my guys, and maybe somehow, there is this coup that has now happened, and conveniently so, the president is back at his home. Some people, of course, have been sacrificed. Mali has been saved from an economic collapse, perhaps. So what does the African Union do? What does the AU do? So that's the discussions that I'm going to have with my guests today. So let me introduce them. Welcome again, Mr. Sali Nana, who is a certified anti-terrorism specialist. I thank you very much, because you've always been on this program, and I appreciate your analysis and your great insight. And I really want us as Africans to continue to do this. But again, I have one of the most powerful analysts that I've met, and we continuously engage on these issues. Mr. Alex Akoman, he's also a certified anti-terrorism specialist. Let's listen to them and try and squeeze them into giving us, some of the best analysis that we can get out of them. So, Mr. Nana, let me welcome to the program again today, and let me start with you. You're following what is happening in Mali, of course. I think that a lot of people are saying that ECOWAS has played a role in the release of Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, that's the former president. What is your take? Because my take is that, I see this thing as much more of a very convenient, arrangement between the president and some of his loyalist soldiers. And as the soldiers say, there was no coup at all. Do you think the same?
Thank you very much for having me again, David, and good evening to our viewers, and good evening to my co-panelists. I think that there has been a coup in Mali. So what has taken place in Mali is a coup d'etat. So whether there is violence in a coup or the coup is peaceful is simply a description of the coup. But this was a military coup. So there can be a civilian coup, but this is actually a military coup. So I believe that there has been a military takeover in Mali. There has been a coup d'etat. Of course, there has been no violence or gunshots during the process, and the president apparently wasn't manhandled by the military, um, and he was kept or in detention, and then he has been released, which appears to me to be into a form of house arrest, because the spokesman of the military said that he can go to live in his place of choice and go to choose which hospital to go to. However, reading between the lines of what the military was saying is that there will be some restrictions or surveillance of his is not exactly completely free as a free person to move and do what he likes. So I personally, I mean, your theory of a palace coup could also be valid, but my personal opinion is that it was a coup d'etat and it was a military coup d'etat. It also could be deduced from their statements of the 3 years transition and also other kind of utterances that they have made. I think they released him because the military spokesman said that they need the international community. Mali relies a lot on the international community, economically speaking, and they were trying to meet the conditions of ECOWAS. Also, I think that they would have been spoken to help ECOWAS to save face, because in this coup d'etat, ECOWAS and the regional bodies, the African Union and others, have actually lost. They have actually lost credibility from public opinion. They are seen as not being effective, and they were seen as not having helped Malians when they were protesting, and they saw the military as heroes. So I think there might have been discussions between Goodluck Jonathan and the military junta to say to them, look, we need some kind of concessions to also show that we also have some influence. If you refuse releasing him and you refuse everything that we ask you, we look very bad, and you don't expect us to help you in lifting sanctions or getting financial aid. So I think that part of the release was to not to impress Malians, because I think that if you ask an ordinary Malian, I don't think they are happy with the release. But I think that the military realizes that they have to survive, and Mali has to survive. So I think it looks like it was a concession to ECOWAS and to the international community, with the military trying to save face and to say we are very democratic people, and we're not going to deny or reject every kind of request that you make. Yeah. So I think that is a PR move to impress the international community. I don't think that it would go down very well with the population, because there's a degree of anger against Ibrahim Abubakar Keita and his family, and given that his son has allegedly been allowed to leave the country, who was one of the triggers of the coup, his lifestyle was one of the triggers of the coup, is also, I think, that is a setback to the military.
Okay, let me. It's a setback to the military. That's a good point, Mr. Alex. Let me get to you. You've listened to what our colleague here, Mr. Nana, has said. He thinks, as many analysts do, that this is some kind of a concession. The release of Ibrahim Boubacar Keita is some kind of a safe face, maybe some kind of a safe face concession by the military junta, the CNSP. Of course, to give the African, the ECOWAS some kind of, not to go empty-handed, I call it, and to go to other member states and say, listen, this is what we got. We have an agreement to release the ousted president. Now he's released. You listen to the briefing by the junta. They made it very clear that they want to stay in power for 3 years, and they also talked about the other senior government officials who are now in custody, including the prime minister and the son of the president. What more do you know about that, and how do you analyze these stands that they've made, with rumors that the son is now heading towards Cote d'Ivoire, I think?
Thank you very much, David, and other panelists for these discussions about issues concerning our homeland, Africa. And as you said today, we are talking about Mali and Cote d'Ivoire. What happened in Mali, obviously, there are different interpretations. When you talk about military coup, it's about a removal of an existing government, and sometimes, and most of the time, through violent means. And the military took time to explain that difference, because what happened in Mali, the president himself was rejected by the whole population. For months, we've seen protests, people asking him to resign. We had famous people like Salif Keita, who is one of the influential musicians worldwide, who is from Mali, but he's never been involved in politics. It's just because the government of Ibrahim Boubacar Keita has failed, and the country was almost collapsing. Bear in mind, the rebels were controlling 70% of the country, and atrocities were committed regularly. Schools have been closed for months. Businesses cannot be operating properly. So the government, the president himself, he was stuck because he couldn't deliver and things were not getting better. So after his removal, and when the ECOWAS team arrived in Bamako, the first request was to see the president, to see how he is and how he's kept by the military. And we had a meeting between the president, Ibeka was deposed, the ECOWAS team, and former President Keita made it clear that he resigned freely. And within the Malian constitutions, this is something the president can willingly accept to do when he realized that he cannot perform his duties. Secondly, so the first thing was he wasn't forced to resign. He resigned freely. And Mr.
Alex, do you believe he resigned freely?
Right. I mean, obviously, people can debate, but basically what happened, he resigned, and also he dissolved his own government, and again, the parliament. These are within the mandate of the president. And obviously, he wasn't delivering. As I just said, the country things were getting worse, if you look at since he's been in power. And he even thanked the military for helping him out. And now, the ECOWAS was willing to have him freed. And the military, they were not willing to keep him in prison or keep him under house arrest because we made it clear that the intention is not to go after the president, is to ensure that Malians live in a much more peaceful, secured environment where businesses people can carry on with their businesses. So again, people can speculate, but we need to look at the facts. And again, when you talk about military coup, the constitution of the country is dissolved. And here, the constitution of Mali is still in place. We haven't changed the constitution. So all action which are being taken is within the constitution of Mali, of the country. I can take an example just to show. In Ivory Coast, in Cote d'Ivoire, in December 1999, we had a military coup. The president, Bédier, flew the country. The military, when they came in, they dissolved the parliament, obviously the government wasn't available, and they dissolved the constitution. And a new constitution has to be drafted during the transition and put to a referendum later on in August. So it took 8 months to draft a new constitution and have a new constitution which showed that what was going, there is an interruptions constitutionally. So what's happening in Mali, again, some people might agree, some might not agree, but what's happening in Mali was within the constitutions of the country, and they acted to ensure that life can be improved. And now they have to work together as the whole Malian, all the different Malian groups, they need to work together to deliver, because that's the key.
Okay, so sorry, Ms. Alex, let me ask you this question, while you're there. Now, the military junta, the CNSP, has made it very clear, as you've said, that this was not a coup. The Malian president, the former president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, has made it very clear, or so very clear, that he resigned voluntarily and that he wasn't forced to resign, and that he has no intention of returning to power. So can it be possible? Can it be possible to say that this was an arrangement between the military and the president? So instead of him resigning, they had a deal with the military to stage this, what they call, I don't know.
I mean, it's true. There might be a gentleman agreement, because obviously the president was, as I said earlier, was almost stuck. He couldn't deliver, and he was looking for a way out. So through this action, they strike like a balance, and the government, the former president has withdrawn. Basically, he's no longer there, and we don't know yet. Maybe later on, the transition government will have to have cases against him. But for the time being, we don't have cases against him. So the ECOWAS request has been granted because the military don't want to keep him in prison. There's no need to keep him in prison. It's not the key issue. The key issue is the management of the country. He couldn't manage it. Today is off. A new team will be in place, and that's why we're looking at ensuring that all the different groups can get together and ensure that the transition is a successful one. Because if the transition becomes a successful one, then the whole country will benefit from it.
Okay, the whole country will benefit. Let me get to Salina. Now, the military junta is saying that they need 3 years as a period of transition to move the country forward. ECOWAS is saying, 3 years is too much. We want you to do it within a year. Should this depend on ECOWAS or should this depend on Malians? Whose call is it, Sally?
Yes, so I think that this was a coup d'etat, and I think that just to make it clear, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta said that he had no choice. He used the expression that he had no choice on TV. Yeah. So we just to make it clear that when you are under when you're under duress, you don't take decisions freely. So to take decisions freely, you need to be a free person. You don't take free decisions while under a military junta. So this was a coup d'etat. He was forced to resign, and that is the facts of history. It doesn't matter what spin the military junta takes. It doesn't matter that they did a good job. That they removed him in accordance with what the people wanted. Now, whether it is ECOWAS call or the Malians call, I think that is both ways. Mali is one of the countries that really relies on international aid. They also have huge security problems in the north and in central Mali, for which they need international support, not only financially, but also military equipment and other things.
Yeah.
They also need legitimacy. So partly it is ECOWAS call. So like ECOWAS has influence in Mali, just like the France and other international partners or international actors within Mali. They have influence, so they cannot be dismissed as not having a say, as we can see from the release of the ousted president. So the first thing is that ECOWAS has influence, and it has more influence in Mali than in some countries. But it is the military junta that is now in charge. So the decisions will be the decisions of the military junta. The military junta has said that they want 3 years, and most people will say that that's too long. But what will happen is that, like I said in the first show about Mali, this is a military coup. We have been here before. It's just another military coup. It will take time. The people the military will not just want to leave tomorrow.
Right.
They will want to say, okay, we haven't achieved what we came in to achieve. The civilian partners have not agreed among themselves, and this will carry on. And I think that they might even declare a shorter period of 18 months or 24 months, but then what will likely happen is that will be extended. The reason being that Mali is a complex country. The complexity is in the issues that are beforehand. The issues beforehand are not just about the unity of the country. They are serious. There's a war in the north. There's a virtual war in the central part of the country. The Tuaregs are not just going to carry their bats home and say, because the military has overthrown Abubakar Keita, then we are very happy and we are taking our bats home and the war is over. We don't want Azawad anymore. It's okay. We have to understand that the Tuaregs are very suspicious of the Mandinke and the other people that are in charge of power since the time of Modibo Keita, who was from the same ethnic background like Ibrahim Abubakar Keita, and also the same ethnic group or background with Toumani Toure and other people. And there's also there is an unspoken ethnic and religious kind of under current in this conflict, which initially, when in Africa, when the hunters get their prey, the first thing is that everybody is happy. So the prey is here. The elephant or the lion or whatever we've got it. The problem is afterwards, when the euphoria, kind of disappears, that, okay, we've got the prey now. The issue is how do we divide it? and who is going to take what, and who actually shot. There were two who shot who had the sharpest spear, and who is the main hunter here. And all these discussions are not going to be wished away just because there are problems in Mali. And once one problem is out of the way, and the main problem, the unity of Malians were against Abubakar Ibrahim Keita. They were fed up with his role. I mean, it would have been very difficult to find somebody who was not fed up with his role.
So now,
they have achieved that. Then yes, the problems are really difficult and it's going to take a long time.
Okay, the problems are very complex, as you said. And if you've done it very well in terms of the way you've done the analogy, that the praise seems now to have been IBK Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, and now he's on the ground. Now he's no longer there as a president. The issue now is who is going to rule, and what are they, and how are they going to deal with the complexity? So you know very well that, as you've mentioned, the North, it's got, of course, the Azawad are there. You've got the Islamic State of the Greater Sahel having territories in one area, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, and, Jenim is there with Ansar Din and all the rest. Of course, you also have the problems with links with Libya, where you've got, migration issues, linked to the Lake Chad region with Niger Republic. You've got Boko Haram there. Nobody knows which is which. So Mali has got huge problems. And as you rightly said, we've not even talked about the internal issues, the political issues that they have. So what would you think the role of the military or the priorities of the military would be, taking into consideration the complexity of Mali? Do you think the jihadist issue is the biggest problem, or do you think it is the political issue, whereby you've mentioned tribal issues, you've mentioned issues of culture? Do you think they need 10 years, the military junta, or you think 3 is enough, or 1 is enough?
I think the military cannot afford to ask for longer than 3 years. So, and they will not get 3 years. So I think the agreement will be something half of the 3 years on paper, because they have to go for something realistic based on the stakeholders. And also remember that the people who are marching on the streets in Mali were not military. They were a coalition of the opposition and civil society. So they will want to be in charge. But the military, their priority now is to get a government in place. So that would be their first priority. Their first priority is who is in. They know that they are in charge because they have said it, that they will be in charge. So their first priority is setting up a government. Then the second priority for them is to address the economic problems, because the economic problems in Mali are very severe. But then the problems they have is that all of these problems are not isolated. So the economic problems are linked to the jihadist issues you talk about in the north, about the secession war of the Tuaregs, and the fight between the Dogons and the Fulbe within the central Mali, and also all the historical issues about which tribe is a ruling dynasty, and also other past grievances. So I think all these issues are linked to each other. But I think the priority is forming a government so that the government is functioning, and then economic issues, including how do you pay for the government.
Okay. Okay, so that's a good point. Now, let me talk to Alex Akoman, because
Oh, gentlemen, I have
yes,
really to jump in there. We
yes.
have got time is running out. We need to go to a break. Then we
Oh,
come back with Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire.
thank you.
Otherwise, we won't be. This
We,
this issue is an ongoing. You can come back and next week and discuss because it is huge. How about that? Should we go to the break and then we come
let's,
back with Cote d'Ivoire?
yes, and then we
Thank you.
come to.
Right. Okay, you've heard all these guys. I mean, they know exactly what they are talking about. They have spent almost half an hour, which actually seems like 1 minute. Africa has got huge problems. Now, just imagine we are talking about Mali. We haven't even talked about Ethiopia. We haven't even talked about Somali. We haven't even talked about Uganda. Oh God, you have to help us, man. You know, I'm becoming religious. So, David, now I know you are going to talk about Cote d'Ivoire, and I'm sure
Yes.
you have got a man here from Cote d'Ivoire. We have been advised not to use the name Ivory Coast. So let us hope that we will maintain that. David, you are on.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph, and again, thank you for the viewers for your time. Now, Mr. Alex, we were just talking, and Mr. Nana did mention that the issues of Mali, are kind of linked to regional states. So, and one of those regional states, it's Cote d'Ivoire. Again, some people call it Ivory Coast, but you've given us the right name. We've had issues recently which are to do with what one West African president described as a constitutional coup in relation to President Alassane Ouattara asking for a third term in office, in what a lot of legal commentators have described as against the constitution of Cote d'Ivoire. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is a return. This is a copycat of what happened with ex-president Laurent Gbagbo when he was he was removed from power because it was alleged that he had lost the election. Is this a repeat of what we're seeing? And with the ongoing coup d'etat, as Mr. Nana has described it, and as many of us have described it in Mali, is there a worry that we are going through a constitutional coup in Cote d'Ivoire?
Thank you, David. And again, thank you, Nana, as well, for your input. We are facing a situation which is quite worrying in Cote d'Ivoire. Now, when you look back in the last 10 years, what happened in 2010 cannot be compared to what is happening now. Mm-hmm. Let me just briefly, in 2010, Cote d'Ivoire has been ruled by one party since the 60s. We had the military coup in 1999. We had a transition from January 2000 to October 2000. And President Gbagbo was then elected. He came to power in October 2000. He laid down his program, and he started implementing his program because he wanted the country's resources to be shared and benefiting the population. He had the policy of local government to ensure that each region, because when you look at what's happening in Mali or in other countries, it's about the sharing of the resources. Some regions think that they are neglected because the president is not coming from the region. So the President Gbagbo came up and said, there will be local government, like in the UK here, and those who are in charge of the local government will have funding from the authorities and deal with the issues they are facing, like hospital building, schools, universities, training, and roads and everything. Unfortunately, this policy wasn't accepted because, again, the French-speaking countries are not yet free because we are still linked with France. In Cote d'Ivoire, we still have a French military base in Abidjan. And once they don't share the policy of the person in charge, then obviously they come up with strategy to destabilize that government. That's what happened in other countries like Burkina. Now in Cote d'Ivoire, in September 2002, they tried a military coup against Gbagbo, which failed, and it turned into rebellion. We had 8 years from 2000 to agreements. Gbagbo agreed everything, and they had 2010.
Okay, we are having problems with the line.
Yeah, so-
Probably continue with another guest, and then until we sort this out.
Yeah, Mr. Alex, are you getting me now? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, it was breaking. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we had election in 2010. We had electoral commission, we did the work, and the constitutional court had to give a decision. And because everything went well, the constitutional court did the work. Unfortunately, and again here, we don't have maybe time to discuss all the details to make sure that people understand. But the West, with France, wanted Ouattara in power. So they did everything, they waged war against Ivorian, and they put Ouattara in power. And Sarkozy, the former French president, made a statement during his, after the overthrow Gbagbo. So we are now in 2020. We had a constitution which said that a leader has one mandate, re-elected once. And this is what has been since the constitution of 2000. 2016, Ouattara drafted a new constitution. The experts who were involved in the drafting of a new constitution and Ouattara himself, they agreed that there will never be a third term. A president will be elected once and renew his mandate, and after 2 mandates, they will leave power. Throughout the last 4 years, 5 years, Ouattara has never expressed his desire to run for a third term. And recently, the last couple of months, he came up saying that the person he chose to represent him unfortunately passed away. And as a result, which is in clear violation of institutions, and he made a different statement, official statement, that he will not run for a third term. So everybody now is
let me speak to Mr. Alex. Let me 1 second. Let me speak to while your line is settling down. Let me speak to Mr. Nana about this issue. There seems to be a trend within African states where a constitution would state clearly how long a president is supposed to be in power. But along the line, as Mr. Alex was explaining, in the case of Ivory Coast, the president will come up and say, like in the case of Ivory Coast, they say it's a new constitution, and it allows them to start afresh. Is this one of the reasons why we see a lot of political protest and distrust, between the people and a lot of African countries that practice this same kind of tactics?
Absolutely, and that is exactly the case. So what we have got in Africa is the syndrome of steps forward, 20 steps backward. And this happens, we have seen this happen in Benin, we have seen this happen in Mali, we have seen this happen in Ivory Coast, and we also have seen this happen in many other countries whereby there seems to be progress and a president comes on and he is trying to implement what looks like a very indigenous, well thought out program, like Alex said, what Laurent Gbagbo was doing in Ivory Coast, and what happened earlier on with Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso and others, where someone comes on, they are doing what they are supposed to do, and because of foreign interests and other sort of indigenous allies of the policy called France Afrique, which is French imperialism, then not only France, but there's also American ingerence, there's European powers, even Australia and other countries, even China quietly, economically. So then all this interference results to them wanting somebody else in power. So what is happening in Ivory Coast is a constitutional coup. And what is also happening in other countries, like it happened in Cameroon before, in other African countries, is where the president, the sitting president, changes the constitution to suit them in order to run for another term. And it is clear to everybody. I find it very irritating that people try to justify that, no, we've had a new constitution, we start all over again. I mean, it's very irritating because everybody can see that what is happening is that somebody is trying to subvert constitutional rule and maintain themselves in power. So limitation of terms in Africa is clearly a source, violation of the limitation of terms, presidential terms, is clearly a source of conflict in Africa.
Yeah, now is it clearly a source of conflict?
And we must address that. We must address that if we want peace. So the two terms limitation has to be made sacrosanct in order to limit and minimize state capture by political elites in Africa.
And that's a good way of putting it. A state capture by political elites. Now, Mr. Alex, how does Cote d'Ivoire view, Cote d'Ivoirians, Ivorians?
Mm-hmm.
How do they view the situation that is happening in Mali? What are they saying? Are they admiring what the military is doing there, and therefore wishing that it's the same thing that happens in Ivory Coast, or are they scared? What are you hearing on ground?
Basically, what's happening in Mali, I think it's encouraging, because when a government is failing, government is in office to deliver on various projects, to ensure that the living conditions of the population does improve. And when this does not happen, we cannot just say, because he's been elected for 4 years or for 5 years, we have to wait until he finishes his mandate. But in the meantime, there's no hospital, there's no schools, there's no food, and people. So what Somalia has done is encouraging. And obviously, there was some conversation between the son of Boubacar Keita and one of the Ivorian ministers on last Tuesday, because they were discussing on WhatsApp. And when he was arrested, the military put that information in the public. So they were thinking already that what was happening, they were scared. The government officials, they were saying that, if this happened in Mali, if the coup is successful, then they might be in trouble in Ivory Coast. And if you look at the ECOWAS attempt to bring back Boubacar Keita, was because other leaders were fearing that the same fate happened to them. So during the conversation among the head of state, one of the presidents from Guinea-Bissau, he made it clear that if we consider a military takeover is not acceptable, then we also need to consider sitting president, who in the ECOWAS they have already made a decision not for a president not to run for a third term. Now, clearly, one of them now is trying to refuse to respect that rule. So he raised the issue. He said, then what about Cote d'Ivoire? Because it's clear we've heard that president make public speeches, committed not to run for a third term, and at the last minute, clearly he's violating his own constitutions, and he wanted to run for a third term. So we want the communities worldwide to ensure that the population is not accepting it. They're not going to accept it because his rule has been chaotic in every terms.
Yes, hold on there, Mr. Alex. His rule has been chaotic. Now, let me come to you, Mr. Nana. Yes, I listened to the conversation where one of the presidents of the West African states seriously condemned what is happening in Ivory Coast. You know, he condemned it as a constitutional coup. Now, and the ECOWAS has remained almost silent. The ECOWAS hasn't done anything. It is the same reason how the ECOWAS were involved in the situation before the alleged coup in Mali. You know, they couldn't solve the problem. Now they are coming when the problem has already degenerated to the situation that it is now. You know, is ECOWAS just attending meetings, you know, without, you know, having any powers, or, you know, is this just a club of gentlemen, or, you know, what are they doing, you know, Mrs. Sally? Because I think they are very ineffective, you know, to be honest.
Absolutely correct. So they are very ineffective. Dishonest, because most of the people who are within ECOWAS also suffering from the same disease that they are trying to treat. So they are also products of same systems. They are also, when you have a club of people who are not clean themselves, because there's a principle in law that he who comes for justice must come with clean hands. The question now we have to ask African leaders who are in ECOWAS is that, are they coming with clean hands to resolve these issues? So yeah, one of the difficulties we have is a situation whereby the leaders that are trying to resolve these issues are perpetuating the same issue. So it's like you get another gang to resolve the problems of another gang, like two gangs doing similar things, and they don't want to actually take serious, except there has been influence, for example, in Gambia. So this issue of term is not only in Cote d'Ivoire, it's also an issue in Guinea Conakry. It's also an issue. It's been an issue in Cameroon, Chad, in different places. In the case of Cote d'Ivoire has been through civil war not long ago, and there have been a coup d'état implemented by France. There are videos on YouTube whereby French soldiers actually were the ones that actually directed and also part in deposing Laurent Gbagbo. The thing is that what goes around comes. So if you cannot do these things and then wait that, okay, they have disappeared, you have spin them, and now they will not have any impact. Yes. So Ivory Coast is Cote d'Ivoire is a country that came out of a civil war, and there is also and BDA, because they had an agreement when he came to power for him to take, and because they are almost like the same party, basically it's just a question of branding. and they wanted that you take power, you finish, we also take power. So we maintain ourselves and our in power in Ivory Coast forever, and we ensure that the FPI of never gets to power.
Okay. No, yes.
Less alternate.
Just
So there's this issue, and I think that is going to be a problem for Ivory Coast.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nana. Let me get Mr. Joseph's question there. Mr. Joseph, go ahead before I get to Alex.
Actually, yes. Let me put it this way: the issue of constitution, it is this is an element which is really not understood throughout Africa, and I have come to realize that the constitution of a country is actually is understood for the elite, for the ruling parties. You will otherwise what they decide whatever they want to do. They can come up and say, we want to change the constitution, and it's going to say this and this. That alone actually is dictatorship, although they are saying that they have been elected by the people. If the constitution could be, it doesn't matter where. Uganda has been changed about 5 times. Probably even in Cameroon it has happened. But what I don't see is that the constitution is not actually intended for the people that are for the citizens. Never mind about the people who are in a government, because the people in governments, they are there as servants to serve these people at a lower level, because it is their country. They are managers. But you find that many presidents, they feel as soon as they get onto that seat, they feel the country belongs to them. They can do whatever they want to do. Yeah. So I think for African countries to go ahead or to move far, they have actually to teach the Constitution and what is the intention of the Constitution to the people that they are supposed to be governing.
I think that's a very good point, Mr. Joseph, and I want to put that to Mr. Alex Akoman, because as Mr. Joseph has said, as Sally Nana has made it very clear, and I buy the idea. I believe that it is against the Constitution for President Alassane Ouattara to run again, and it would ignite a conflict in Ivory Coast, in Côte d'Ivoire, which is very, very unnecessary. It would also expose ECOWAS into a conflict resolution engagement, which I don't think they have the capacity to do. Considering how they are dealing with other countries. Now, is that the same? Are you as a specialist in this area and as an analyst? The Ivorian president, the Côte d'Ivoire president, has said that he's going to run. In the upcoming election. Do you support this? And how can you advise your country against engaging in something which is going to create a very bad precedent? And bearing in mind what is happening in Mali, which is just a neighboring state. So what is your take on this? Because we are rounding up.
Yes, what I would like to say to all the leaders across Africa, especially in Côte d'Ivoire, that there is a need to respect the rules, the constitution of the country. And today, what is happening now in Ivory Coast shouldn't be happening. It's unfortunate, and it's because of Ouattara's desire to carry on ruling, even though he's not allowed to. But what I can take it from what is happening is that there are some pressure coming up from outside, because Ouattara came through military coup and was supported by the West. The UN was involved in the war against Côte d'Ivoire. They supported Ouattara's rebellion. The French army coached, supported, managed the rebellion because they just want to still control the resources of Ivory Coast, of Côte d'Ivoire. And they violated the constitution in 2010 because they refused to respect the rule and impose what from it remains. And throughout the last 10 years, his rules have been chaotic. All his allies, Soro, who were with him, have left him because he was, his rule is chaotic.
Yeah.
So everyone was expecting him, as he said himself, that he will leave power. But fortunately, he changed course. And I've just got some latest news that he's been summoned to France because President Macron himself should now deliver. When Ouattara said that he will not run for election in March, openly and officially, he congratulated Ouattara, saying that, okay, this is a very good example. Few months down the line, Ouattara had changed.
Gentlemen, we are really running out of time. We need to round up so quickly.
Yes, we're rounding up.
President Macron has now, as I've just heard today, summoned Ouattara to come to France. As now he traveled to France since, yes, he left Ivory Cote d'Ivoire yesterday to France to come and realize that he should not run for a third term because already they've killed various Ivorians across the towns, and Ouattara need to stop his willingness to break the law again.
Yeah.
So hopefully the international pressure will come on top of what Ivorians are willing to do is just to respect the constitution so that everybody comes in, and when it's time, you go on and carry on for people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alex. Gentlemen, I really want to appreciate your discussions, your expertise on this, on the issues of Ivory Coast, and the take-home point is very, very clear. If we want to continuously maintain peace and security and stability in Africa, if our leaders really want to maintain their sovereignty, they want to maintain the constitutional rights which the people are there to elect them to power, I think they've got to respect it themselves. What is happening in Ivory Coast is something in Cote d'Ivoire is something which we think will set the country into much more chaos, as we've seen in previous times. And I don't think the country is ready for that. I believe that the international community and ECOWAS will take the proactive step to resolve this issue and make sure that the constitution is respected in Ivory Coast, in Cote d'Ivoire again. Mr. Alex, I've really got to learn this thing, but I'll do that. And then let's come back to Mali again, which we've seen.
No. Time is gone.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Joseph.
We will come back next week. I have got some very interesting question here from Houston, America, from Catherine.
Go ahead.
I think we will have to answer this question next week. We will have to come back. But the question is that Africa needs to boycott these clubs of gentlemen remotely controlled by the West, take their destinies into their own hands. The military guys in Mali are doing exactly that. They have not shed any blood in the process, but ECOWAS and the African Union are condemning them. Why haven't they condemned the genocide meditated on Ambazonians by the fellow gentleman Paul Biya?
Yeah, I think that's a good question that we would talk about next week.
Seriously, we have to end on this.
Yeah.
So, as always say, you see the conversation is getting interesting. But what we need to do, viewers, we need to continue on Facebook or on YouTube. You can leave your comments and questions about Africa, any country. You see, today we have touched about the word constitution. Probably when we come back, David and his team, they will have already sussed out the constitution. What is really the constitution? For now, ciao.